Right guys, welcome to the channel. YouTube, we have finally landed. So for everyone who doesn't know me, doesn't follow me, I'm just gonna obviously touch on like a sort of backstory on my previous sort of how I got to this point, how I got to being an IFBB Pro. I'll touch on how I started in bodybuilding and my journey up until this point, just so everyone kind of can relate to who I am. For people who are new to the channel, new to follow me on Instagram, my name is Neil Andrews. I'm an IFBB Pro from Wales in the United Kingdom. I'm a father of two beautiful children. I have a fiance as well. So yeah guys, obviously this channel is going to be a little bit diverse, a little bit different to your typical bodybuilding channel. I want to be able to give back to you guys, the followers, just sort of solid information, some real good sort of things you can take and implement into your day-to-day life. We're going to be shooting with different athletes from around the UK. We're going to do a day in a life. We're going to do a breakdown on all the supplementation that I take, especially for my sponsors, Strom Sports Nutrition. Shout out to those, 7 years deep this year. Absolutely blessed to represent, you know, one of the best brands in the world now. Not only in the UK, we're in USA, we're in New Zealand, we're in Australia. We're taking over, guys, and the supplements are second to none. Strom is all about innovation. They set the bar when it comes to formalization and products and innovation. We bring a lot of firsts to the market, and then a lot of brands will try and replicate and follow suit, okay? So back to the channel, obviously we're going to be, you know, doing a breakdown of the supplementation that I take. We'll go through the Strom range. I'm going to be doing a day in the life of. We'll do a refeed day, a high day, a cheat sort of day as well. We'll be doing Q&As with other athletes from around the UK, training with other athletes, training in different gyms. So there's going to be lots of different things coming to the channel, not just all about me and, you know, watching me train. I think, you know, are we really in 2026 showing people how to train? For the newbies out there, then yeah, that's great. But once you've seen somebody bench or somebody deadlift, seeing that week in, week out is pretty fucking boring. So we're going to bring a lot of sort of, I'd say, diversity to this channel. It ain't going to be a one-trick pony. So yeah, back to me. Obviously, yeah, from Wales, started off my bodybuilding career in 2004, which is pretty wild when you think of it. 20 years, 21 years, is it? 22 years? Crap of maths. But yeah, 2004. So sort of dabbled in weights when I was younger, but then, you know, done a bit of powerlifting as well in 2003, won the Welsh and British bench press championships, and then I said, right, I'm going to train for a year. I'm going to train for a natural competition. So my first show was in 2004, BNBF Southern Championships in Dorchester. Won my class, nearly won the overall. The Discovery Channel was filming there, which was pretty cool, which I didn't know. Obviously, I turned up and there was cameras everywhere. They were filming a group of athletes who they'd done their diet, their nutrition for 12 weeks, and then they entered a competition. And one of the guys on the TV program was in my class. Unfortunate for him, because I beat him. Then I went on to the British Championships, placed 4th in the British Championships in Edinburgh in Scotland. And that sort of kind of set off my journey in the competitive bodybuilding. But when I think back to then, you know, I wasn't eating any kind of diet. I wasn't taking hardly any supplementation. I was drug-free, like absolutely wild, like how blasé and just winging it I was. I think for my first show, my carb up was a Dorian Yates carb up that I took out of a magazine. I was eating whether it was Dorian Yates, I'm not sure, probably not. But it was a jacket potato every hour from waking up till going to bed for the first day. Second day carb up, it was a jacket potato every hour and a half from waking to going to bed. And then third day, every 2 hours from waking to going to bed. So yeah, I rocked up to this show, you know, these big, huge quads, smooth as hell. But my upper was conditioned, and yeah. First show in Dorchester. Second show was British Championships in Edinburgh. Placed 4th there. Then I competed again in 2008. Won the heavyweights, BNBF Welsh. And then it was a bit of controversial sort of call for the overall, which you know, there was 4 judges, 2 went for me, 2 went for another guy, Nick. And then they gave it to the compare woman to decide who was going to win the overall, and she picked the other guy. So why wouldn't you have 5 judges? So 3 outweigh 2. So that was kind of like, yeah, my calling card to go and compete in the UK BFF. So then I got myself a coach, Mark Robinson. Big shout out to Mark. You know, one thing I say to guys, never forget the people who help you up the ladder in life. If anyone knows Mark Robinson, he kind of set the tone for me, the way I am now, you know, the way I thrive and crave information. I've always been that kind of person, but being around Mark, he is an absolute walking genius when it comes to supplementation, drugs, just physiology, biology. It's just unbelievable. And being around Mark for years kind of, you know, rubbed off on me, and this is what, you know, I'm a big supplement advocate. You know, for me, I have to know the ins and outs of everything. And again, if I become a better, more knowledgeable bodybuilder, I become a better, more knowledgeable coach. So I trickle that down into my clientele base. So then 2012 was my first show in the UK BFF. For people who don't know, back then there was only one fed UK BFF. So you can imagine now disbanding the PCA, the Two Bros, the IBFA, the FitX, and having one fed right now in the UK. Imagine how busy the shows were, and that is what the UK BFF was like. It was absolutely, every qualifier was unbelievably hard. You'd have, you know, there would be probably 20 per class. Welsh, September 2012, entered that as an intermediate, under 90 kilos, won my class, big lineup. And I always remember coming down the stairs and the judges were going for a break and they were all singing my praises, shaking my hand. You know, I was kind of taken back by it. They were complimenting me on my physique and my conditioning. And I was going for for an Indian. And they were like, where are you going? This was obviously my coach and people who were in reception. I was like, I'm going for an Indian. I've won my class. I'm going. They're like, you've got to stay for the overall. I was like, I ain't going to win the overall Mr. Wales. And obviously growing up, being in South Wales, Mr. Wales was kind of a big thing. You know, it was like, if you was Mr. Wales, that was a massive achievement. It still is now. So I was like, I'm not going to win the Mr. Wales. I'm going for India. And I've just died of 20 weeks. You know, no, you've got to stay. So they begged me to stay. And lo and behold, I won the overall. So intermediate, under 90 kilos, wins the overall, gets the Paul Grant Memorial Shield. Everyone who wins the overall Mr. Wales back then, their name would be on the back of the shield. So you got Steve Crichton on there, you got Zach Khan on there, you got Flex Lewis on there, you know, you got me on there. So yeah, pretty prestigious. You'd have that shield for a year in your possession and you'd hand it back the next year. And then whoever wins the overall would get the shield again and get their name on the back of the shield with a plaque. So won the Mr. Wales 2012. Then, you know, kind of people were saying, oh no, it was a bit of a fluke. Was it handed to me? Which is absolutely wild because that was my first sort of introduction to the UK BFF. I had no influence at all whatsoever. So I came back, you know, and people said to me, don't come back a second year. You're Mr. Wales. What if you enter now and you lose? You're going to look like you got egg on your face. You got more to lose than you have to gain because, you know, you're the current champion and you've won it. Why do you want to go back again? And I kind of like, you have to do a qualifier to get through to the British Championships. So I won the Welsh in 2012. Then I went to the British Championships, stood on stage with an absolute killer lineup. I think Josh Marley, the Viking, was in my class. Luke Sandow, Geraint Baldwin, Dan McAbb. And I placed 4th, I think, or 3rd. Was it? Actually, it was 4th, yeah. Geraint came 1st, Luke was 2nd. And then it was a Polish guy who came 3rd, I came 4th. So yeah, pleased with that. And then obviously the following year, again, you'll do a qualifier and, you know, for the British Championships, and my qualifier would be the Welsh. So I came back a second year. A lot of people said, don't do it. So I came back 10 pounds heavier, even more conditioned, came back as a heavyweight. And then I won my class, won the overall. Done it again in 2014. Won my class, won the overall, and they stopped the show and they actually awarded me the grant. They awarded me the shield, the Paul Grant Memorial Shield for being recognised as Wales' best bodybuilder, so for life. So I've got the shield right there under my desk. You can probably see it there. It's a Spartan shield. So I've got that as one of my prized possessions, because you can get trophies, you can get swords. Nobody's got a Paul Grant, memorial shield. And if people who don't know who Paul Grant is, Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the very first scene when he walks into Gold's in LA, you see a guy with curly hair comes up to him and shakes his hand and gives him a sort of pat on the back. That's Paul Grant. So it was one of my most prized possessions. So yeah, that was winning the Mr. Wales back-to-back, 2012, 13, 14. I think I'm the only person to ever do that. And that takes me up, obviously. And for me, guys, I always kind of murdered myself getting to a qualifier. I can't step on stage any other way. And I always remember James Llewellyn, IFBB Pro, saying to me, like, Neil, you've made a rod for your back, because they're going to expect that level of conditioning every single time. So for me, I don't know any other way, than to be absolutely peeled to the bone. And what comes with that is fatigue, tiredness. And it takes a level of sort of grit and mindset, because you're going to suffer when your body fat's down to those levels. People get conditioned, but as even to this day, this present day, people don't get my conditioning. It's another level of dryness and hardness. So I always kind of peaked for a qualifier, and I could never sort of nail it for the British Championships. And remember, guys, back then, UKBFF, British Championships, 2 days, they only give out one pro card. So you can imagine how disbanding all the feds in the UK, having one fed, and they give one pro card out a year. That's how difficult it was. I've stood on stage with Sasan Harati, Nathan Diasha, Josh Malley, the Viking, Jamie Johal, and so on and so on. Top guys. I know guys who'd won the Britain 5 years, 3 years back to back, never won a pro card, because they'd win their class, but they wouldn't win the overall. So they give one card out to a guy and one card to a female, and that is how hard it was. It was literally like, the golden goose. So that's how difficult it was coming up in the sport. But very different back then, and the shows were absolutely rammed. The Welsh was a very difficult show to win. Because the timing, it was only 2 weeks before the Britain, so a lot of people done that. A lot of guys come down from Scotland. So I'm very proud to win the Welsh back-to-back, 3 years on a trot. So, yeah, that was my UK BFF days. And then, obviously, transitioning over to the PCA. Won the PCA qualifiers, but never won an overall. 2018, came up against Mark Hector. Shout out to Mark, absolutely phenomenal bodybuilder, structure, shape, size, and they worked us on stage, and they said it was like Dorian and Flex Wheeler, because you had me, hard, granite, dry, and then you had Mark, who had these incredible lines, fullness, roundness to his shape. I still think I should have won it that day, because I think Mark still had room to be more conditioned and to become leaner. I think he had probably another about 8 to 10 pounds to take off his physique. And I was absolutely hard as nails on the money. So do you award on potential, or do you award on who's best in the day? And I think I was best on the day, but, Mark won. Props to him. It was a hard pill for me to swallow, because that was the first qualifier I'd lost in 14 years. So that really lit a fire under my ass. And then again, 2019, Welsh PCA. I hadn't won an overall in the PCA at this point, and I get pipped again. So I win my class, and then I get beaten in the overall to a Scottish guy. What's his name? Lovely physique. And the thing is with me, I was ill going into that show. So when I started carbing up backstage, I just started gouging on food. And I can remember eating a tub of Pringles in literally 20 seconds. And I can remember looking at the tin thinking, holy shit, I just ate 100 grams of fat. And I kind of smoothed a little bit on the glutes and the hamstrings, but I still think size, structure, muscularity, when we're looking at ticking boxes, I still think I should have won. But, I take it on the chin. So that was the second qualifier. I'd been pipped into the overall. And then we take us then to 2021. So 2021, I go and win the Central. Didn't do the Welsh that year, done the Central qualifier in London, didn't tell anyone, turned up, won my class, won the overall. First overall in the PCA, and that is the sword right there behind us on the wall. And there's many swords in this office. I'm like literally fucking Zorro, the amount of swords that I've got. So wins the Central qualifier in London, and then obviously go to the Britain a week later, and I came second in Britain. So I get pipped by Tim, who again, phenomenal bodybuilder, bit thicker and wider in the front to me, but I think shot to shot, I think I kind of had more, I think I won more shots, but you know, second in Britain. Yeah, I was really, really happy with that. That was 2021, and then obviously we take me up to where I became ill then in 2022. So I will touch on this on another story, but anyone who doesn't know, I contracted endocarditis from the dentist in March 2022, just a routine scale and polish. Contracted endocarditis and ended up having life-saving heart surgery. So I will do a separate video on this, guys. So that obviously eradicated 2022. And then my comeback year was 2024. So 2024, I made a comeback after a 3-year hiatus. And yeah, came back. And do you know what? I came back, and obviously everyone knows I'm on TRT. I only take TRT. When you catch endocarditis, you've always got a risk of infection. So I can't take underground labs because they're not made in a sterile environment. So for me, I've been on a TRT dose the last 4 years. So when I started dieting in 2024, I thought, can I even do this? Am I even going to be able to look like I did, you know, when I was on a cycle, you know, before I got ill? So I started dieting and everything started moving and I started looking good, and I was like, you know, yeah, we can fucking do this. So I entered the Two Bros, another fed that I'd never competed in, and I wanted to put my stamp in that kind of fed. So when the Two Bros in Cardiff, the RL Coaching Cup, wins 2 classes, wins the overall. And again, come up against a phenomenal guy in Z's the Beast in the overall, much bigger, fuller than me, but you know, I've got size, I've got conditioning, I'm sharp as fuck. You know, you don't see me sweat on stage. The water is where it needs to be, in the cells. You know, when you see me on Instagram and in the photos, I'm probably even better on stage. I'm not like one of these guys you see on Instagram and they kind of carb up wrong, spill over, don't bring that to stage. You know, if anything, I probably, you know, bring it to stage and I peak. So wins the Two Bros, wins the overall, another overall in another fed, absolutely ecstatic. And then I go to the PCA Central qualifier, wins my class, gets pipped in the overall to a classic guy, very controversial. And then I go to the British Championships and then win the British, and then I win my pro card, get my pro card status, so I become a PCA pro. Then I enter the pro show, and then I win the pro show. So absolutely phenomenal year. Two Bros overall, and then Central win, and then British champion, and then obviously you get awarded pro status, enter the pro show, and win the pro show as well. So went out on a high that year, and then 5 days later, my beautiful son was born. So that brings us to last year, 2025. So 2025, I thought I'm going to work with a coach, Martin, and we sort of map out the year. And I think that is the first time I've ever put it out there, like, right, let's go and see if we can win a pro card. You know, we picked the shows. We done the Two Bros qualifier, and Martin's like, look, instead of going into the Masters, you're going to smoke any Masters, just go into the heavyweights and see how you stand with these guys. So we entered the heavyweight class, and I think it was 14 in my class, top guys in the country, you know, boys in their 20s, 30s, and yeah, we beat them all. So again, very humbling. You know, it was amazing to go there, and again, to see that I can hold it with these guys on the bare minimum, bring a physique that, you know, is good enough to beat, you know, these guys who are taking 10 times what I'm taking. You know, that's no knock on them guys, but I pride myself on, you know, being able to hold my own against these guys on such little sort of support. So we win the Two Bros heavyweight, and then we go to the Britain. That was not planned. I'd already got my qualification for Milan, but we go to the Britain anyway, and then we come third in Britain. So very happy with that. Absolute killer lineup. And then obviously 4 weeks later, November, we go to Milan in Italy. So we go to Milan, huge show, first international. And what the problem is with me, with the heavyweights, being a heavyweight is getting me down to that 102 cap. You know, the cap, a heavyweight is 102 kilos. We had to practically starve me that entire year to get me to compete. So it was making the 102 limit, and then we'd eat and refeed, you know, into the show. So yeah, Milan, we made weight. Luckily it was on a Friday morning, and then we could eat all day Friday, and then all day Saturday to Saturday afternoon when I was on stage. So we carved up on more food instead of cream of rice or rice cakes and honey. We didn't do any of that. We literally put food in. So we were carving up on McDonald's, burgers, muffins, fries. My body just grows better off more food. So there was 12 in my class, I think. Beat those, and then I had to go into the overall then and face the bantamweight, flyweight, lightweight, middleweight and super heavyweight winner of all them categories for the overall, and I beat all them and win pro status. So yeah, I become an IFBB Pro in my first attempt, in my first international. Absolutely mind-blowing. I don't think I've even taken it in to this day. Nothing's changed. You know, I don't walk around with a spring in my step, or thinking I'm an IFBB Pro and looking down my nose at people. I know I'm an IFBB Pro. It's an incredible achievement, but it hasn't changed me at all. And I think, the problem with this sort of sport is you don't really sit in the moment. I sit here sometimes surrounded by all these medals, all these trophies, swords, checks and pro cards, and you don't really take in the actual monumental effort that's gone into them. And I think that's anything in life. We're always moving on to the next thing. It's like when I got the pro card, it's like, right, we need more glutes, we need more hamstrings, we haven't got the heavyweight cap anymore now, so I can come into the show bigger. I can grow into the show, and you're always chasing the next sort of fix. And I think that's the problem sometimes. You don't sit in the moment and take it in. So that takes us up to the present day. I will do a separate video on endocarditis. It's great to get that out there. It's quite common. And a simple trip to the dentist nearly ended my life. So it is an incredible story. I will do a separate video on that. But we're going to be doing lots of things on the channel, guys. Also with this video, I did put a Q&A out on Instagram. So we're going to take questions now from people off Instagram and anonymously. So let's get through it. We'll do the anonymous questions first. Here we go. Right then. So let's have a look. Right, first question. Are you legit TRT? What other compounds do you take? I'm on TRT, guys, okay? I know it's hard to believe, and I even think to myself sometimes, how the fuck I even look like I do. I was in prep and I'm thinking, I take 1 milligram of Cypionate 200 a week, split over 2 shots, okay? That is what I've done for the last 4 years. As I said previously, I can't take underground labs because of the risk of infection, okay? They're not made in a sterile environment. Sometimes, they're not clinically dosed correctly. Sometimes there's something in a bottle that's not what is on the label. And I've seen it, over the years. So for me, I can't take that stuff. Not that I can't, I wouldn't, because of the risk of infection. Once you catch endocarditis, you've always got to be careful with bacteria and things, okay? So I have taken 1 ml of Cypionate for the last 4 years. I've done my blood work multiple times. I've done my blood work in 2024, 10 days out from the Two Bros show. My blood work was immaculate. I think I was 21 nanomoles, my test was. This last year, before Milan, I done my blood work, and my testosterone was 26 nanomoles. So I'm in the therapeutic range. If I was taking Tren, Mastron, all the orals under the sun, my test would be through the fucking roof. I wouldn't be in that therapeutic range. I'm going to be running my blood work next week. I will do obviously a video on that. I'll go through all the markers. I'll explain the markers. I'll break them down for you, and we can, we'll have a good snapshot into my blood work as well. So yes, guys, I am legit on TRT. Okay. Next question. What is your current training split? Do you still prefer more of a bro split, high volume, lots of sets and exercises, drop sets, supersets after the heavy work? I don't really do supersets anymore. I do a back off set on a lot of different movements, but I do high volume, I do high intensity. I'm very strong with a very good rep range. That works for me. You know, it isn't for everyone. And again, there is no best way to train, guys. It's what's best for you and how you can sort of, you know, maintain that training sort of capacity and still getting results, okay? I see lots of guys in the gym, you know, just moving away from A to B for the sake of moving it. You've got to move it with intent. You've got to move it with intensity. Your body's only going to grow and react under fatigue, okay, and under stress and stimulus. So I still train high volume, high intensity. I don't do drop sets, supersets. I do a back off set. Like I was benching Sunday, incline barbell on a Smith, 160 for 8 reps. And then I done a back off set of 100 kilos then for 25 reps. So literally completely break it down in that sort of exercise. So that is basically what I do, guys. Next question. What food sources do you have in your current diet? Alongside whole foods, do you use cereal bars, bagels, jams, etc. around training? Pretty basic, guys. My diet consists of bagels, eggs, cream of rice, jasmine rice, chicken, lean steak mince, cereal, and that's roughly it. Oats, and that's really it. Salmon, and that's basically it in a nutshell. That is my whole diet. Pretty basic, and that's the thing. You know, as I always say, the most anabolic thing you'll ever put on your body is food. You know, you cannot grow, you know, without food. It's like building a house, you know, the bricks are the food, you know, the PEDs and the supplementation is the cement, okay? It's a massive, massive factor when it comes to how you're going to grow, how you're going to build muscle. So that is that question. Can you give us an idea of what your cycle looks like off season? Do you use long esters, 2 shots per week, no other compounds, anti-estrogens, drugs, orals, etc.? Great to see as these new coaches seem to be pushing more than ever. Totally agree, guys. You know, I think bodybuilders these days in the UK are becoming drug addicts. You know, they're taking, you know, up to 2 grams of test a week. Then it's every fucking peptide, then it's retatrutide, then it's orals, then, you know, and anti-estrogens. Where does it stop? You know, it just goes on and on and on and on. There's got to be a point of diminishing returns. How can I be on the least amount of drugs I've ever taken in my life, make my best ever gains, bring my best ever physique? Is it because I'm getting the most of as little as possible? Because there is a point where you drive up anabolics so much, then it's going to just drive up, you know, your free androgen index is going to blow up your estrogen, blow up your prolactin, you know, tank your SHBG. And again, it's diminishing returns. So I don't do a cycle. I only do sipping it, which I've done for 4 years, 200 milligrams split over 2 shots a week. I don't take anti-estrogens because I don't need to. I've never had gyno. I've never had puffy nipples. And there's no need to lie, you know? So yeah, that's it in a nutshell, guys. Sipping it, 200 milligrams, split over 2 shots, Monday, Thursday, and that's what I do. You know, I don't need anti-estrogens because I haven't got prolactin issues. I haven't got estrogen, you know, elevated. You know, my cholesterol's, you know, in check. My blood work, I've always been very savvy with my blood work and make sure my markers are always good. So that is it. Next question. I know you preach TRT, but what was your cycle like in your prime? Be honest. And I'll be honest, I have no reason not to. I used to take 6 mil a week. Pretty basic, but I can tell you that this is what I did for years. I done 1 mil of test and anthate, 1 mil of tren and anthate, and 1 mil of mastron and anthate. And I was doing mastron before it was fucking cool. So I done those 3 compounds twice a week. Monday, Thursday, 6 mil a week. I done that for years, you know, and that's all I used to take. I never took orals in an off season. I never done insulin. I never fucked around, like, you know, with metformin and Nova Rapid and all these other things. It was just basically them 3 compounds twice a week, and that is what I did. I never got sides from tren. My blood work was still very good. I remember Imran, you know, shout out Imran from Transform. in Birmingham. I remember him going through my blood work with me when I was on 6 mil a week, and he even said, like, your blood work is brilliant for an open bodybuilder. And that is because I live the lifestyle. I don't smoke, I don't drink. I'm only a social drinker, but the supplementation's there. You reap what you sow daily. So everything was in place to sort of impact and sort of guide me in that sort of, bubble, astragalus, nacalcystine, glutathione, my omegas, my krill, my flaxseed, all them things are in place to help me from a supplementation standpoint to protect the liver, kidneys, my blood work, make sure my cognitive function is good, my heart health, my cholesterol markers were in line. So again, I always was savvy like that. So that is basically it, guys. Next question. Do you believe in 100% clean eating in your nutrition? No sugar. I don't have sugar. I have 0 drinks. I love a can of Pepsi Max. I'll have a couple of those a day. I don't have sugar on anything. I have sweeteners in my coffee. Nobody eats 100% clean, guys. Nobody. I factor in like an off-plan meal on the weekend. With lifestyle clients, I do the same. And that's basically it. So I hope that answers your question. So I do believe in clean eating is absolutely going to bring only, good things and benefits to you, okay? Because the more processed food you can keep out, the better it's going to be for you. And especially if you're trying to grow a muscle, then as I said to you, the most anabolic thing you'll ever put in your body is food. Next question. Do you think taking TRT for rugby amateur is good for recovery, to help recover from the contact and ready to go again in the gym and game? Absolutely not. You do not want to be, I don't know how old you are, who's sent this message in, but you don't want to be doing TRT just thinking it's going to help you recover. Is it going to help you recover? Yes, to a certain extent. But what's going to help you recover? Your sleep, your supplementation, your hydration. That is where you only can train as much as you can recover. So you have to factor in, recovery days and what you do, making sure your sleep is in check. Do you only grow in deep core sleep? So you get different stages of sleep. You get rapid eye movement, REM. You get, deep orthodox. You get core sleep. And I think in an 8-hour window, you get 4 20-minute growth spurts. So it's only when you get into that deep core orthodox sleep pattern is where the body really recovers and grows. And again, if you're somebody, you can't just hop on and off, drugs, TRT, and I think everyone throws that word around a bit too much these days, TRT, as soon as you go onto anabolics, PEDs, your hormones are never the same again to a certain extent. So, again, once you go on these kind of drugs, your hypothalamus signals the LH, to shut down, then your body is obviously getting drugs artificially. When you stop injecting, come off PEDs, your body doesn't think, hang on now, right, let's just start making tests. You're still going to be shut down for X amount of time. So in that time frame, you could be, you could have raised prolactin, you could be having, you're still producing estrogen. And this is why you get gyno and things, because, you're still shut down. You've got to take drugs to kind of kickstart, the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland to signal LH to start working again, and things like proviron, things like, HMG, HCG, all these things are going to kickstart the testes, to start working again, because, once you go on injectable PEDs, they shut down and they atrophy. So I definitely wouldn't think, and you don't need TRT, guys, when you're 20, 30, 40 years of age. You only go on TRT if you're actually, shut down at the lower end and you've checked every single box, before that. Is your diet in check? Do you do cardio? Are you training? Is there supplementation? And then once all those factors are in line and you're still at the low end of the spectrum when it comes to, your testosterone, which is between 8 and 28 nanomoles, then you look at TRT. Not thinking, do you know what, I'm 14 nanomoles. Do you think I should go on TRT and you're 31 years of age? Fucking absolutely not. Okay, drugs should be the very, very last resort. And you've got guys in their 20s fucking throwing around TRT. Is wild. Next question. What are your thoughts on training weights twice a day? Is it something you have done? Do you prefer once a day, 45 to 60 minutes, all out, and use the time around training to eat, fuel, recover? yeah, look, there's no perfect way to train. As I said, some guys do a bro split. Some guys do a push-pull split. Some guys like high volume, high intensity. Some guys like low volume. If you're getting results and it suits you, your lifestyle, and you're progressing in your lifts, then that's good for you. Just like there's no best diet, there's no best fat burner, there's no best anything, guys. It's what's best for you. So whatever you can maintain. So anything is only as good as long as you can maintain it. So that applies to that question, okay? So again, if you have the ability to train twice a day, then yeah, you see these IFBB Pro bodybuilders, they get up in the morning, they'll have breakfast, they'll go and train, they'll come back, they'll eat, and they'll go train again. But that is their life. If you've got a 9-to-5 job, it's going to be difficult to do that. But I trained one body part once a week for years, and I built a pretty, sick physique doing that. Trained legs once a week, for years, and I grew a fucking crazy pair of legs. So it can be done, guys. You haven't got to be a sheep and follow whatever trend is in. Walk your own path, see what's best for you, okay? Next question. Do you keep a log of any of your training or just make a mental note of weights lifted, etc.? Yeah, look, I don't log, but it is going to be beneficial. Only one time I ever log booked, and that is when I nearly tore my quad off. I was leg pressing 500 kilos on a Watson leg press, and I done 10 reps on 500 kilos quite easily. We loaded up to 670 kilos. I came down, 7th rep, something went in my right quad. I managed to push it back up, got up out of the leg press, dropped my trousers, nothing was bled, no internal bleeding, so I knew I hadn't torn anything. Limped out of the gym, went and got it seen, and I had a grade 1 strain. Never logged booked since then. So I think when you got an inert sort of feeling in the gym, I kind of know my limits. I can really push myself. Even if I train on my own, I've got that sort of that innate ability to push myself, where a lot of people haven't. I've PT'd people, I've trained with guys, I'm thinking, oh no, why you gone lighter for? You just done 12 fucking reps, go heavier again, and some people haven't got that ability to push themselves in the gym. I have. So yeah, that is the only time I log booked, and I haven't log booked since. But I do say to my clients, you can't progress what you can't track. Again, it's not about beating numbers or beating the weight. It's about doing no less than the week before. I am going to start logging my lifts going forward this off season. So yeah, you can log book, but it's not a be all end all. Okay, you haven't got to. Next question. What is it with today's coaches, science nerds with the super low volume approaches? The best physiques in the world were created working out heavy weight, volume set for set. Now everyone, 9 sets of body part, including warm-up, is made out to be overtraining. Yeah, I think overtraining is a bit of a myth. If you're not recovering, is going to be an issue, okay? Your body is pretty fucking resilient, and I think, yeah, everyone's an expert with no credentials, and that's the problem. You've got guys on social media now telling you to grow a back who haven't got a fucking back. You've got guys telling you to grow massive arms who haven't got a pair of arms. Do you mean? Who are you going to take advice off? You're going to take the advice of the guy who's absolutely jacked in the gym, or you're going to take advice off some science PT nerd that hasn't built the physique? And I don't get that. If you're a PT, be an advertisement for your own self, for your business. If I'm going to be a PT in a gym, I'm going to be the biggest motherfucker in the gym. I'm going to be in incredible shape because I want to be able to inspire my clients. How can I push my client in a gym through a session to get in shape when I'm out of shape myself? It's mind-blowing. That's like me giving Lewis Hamilton driving lessons and I haven't got a fucking driving license. So yeah, I think that's the problem with social media. It's great, but it's also very misleading. I think everyone's got a fucking camera, a tripod. Everyone's giving out advice, and there's a lot of misinformation out there now. A lot of noise. So take advice from guys who've walked the walk, who've been there and done it, okay? Next question. can you do a breakdown of all your subs, why you take them, the benefits of each one? I absolutely will. I'll go through the entire Strom range. I'll go through what I take throughout the day, you know, with Strom and other things. You know, I take a lot of diverse supplements that cover a lot of different health markers in the body. And I'll break it down for you. And again, you know, interaction as well. Certain supplements have to be taken away from other supplements. Certain supplements are fat soluble, water soluble, have to be taken with meals, have to be taken away on an empty stomach. You know, if you're taking iron, has to be on an empty stomach. But if you take iron, you have to take vitamin C, because vitamin C increases absorption of iron. If you're taking magnesium, you can't take calcium with magnesium. So again, all these things I'll touch on, guys, in another video, okay? And that's pretty it with the anonymous questions. Let's get through the questions off Instagram. I'll just pull these up now. Let's have a look. Bear with me 2 seconds and we'll get these up. Right, here we go. Right, so first question is, how do you stay motivated like you've been at this a very long time? And that's come from Lee. Yeah, I think motivation comes and goes, doesn't it? You know, there's many days I don't want to get up in prep and go and do my cardio, but who's going to do it for me? Nobody. You know, that's the problem. You need to understand, guys, it starts and ends with you. Nobody's going to do this shit for you. I can be the best coach in the world, best motivator in the world, best, you know, check-ins, do the best plans, but I can't control what you do behind closed doors. I can't control if you do your cardio or if you train or what you put in your mouth. So again, it starts and ends with you. So yeah, motivation comes and goes. I'm not motivated most fucking days, but discipline is what gets it done, because I know that nobody's going to achieve my goals for me. It's me. It starts and ends with you guys, okay? So thank you for the question. Next question, what's your goals in 2026 season? From James. We've got 2 pro shows in the book, so we are going to do 2 pro shows this year. Now for me, we're just getting a little bit of stabilization after Christmas and Milan. So even now I'm sitting at about 115 kilos and I'm not even pushing food. So I think I'm about 251 pound. I got up to 271 without even trying that hard last year. So again, it's about keeping the body composition a bit tighter. I'm doing, you know, a different training split. I'm doing different exercises now that I didn't do last year. I've never done a fucking RDL in my life. So now on posterior day, we're really hitting the RDLs because I want more thickness through the hammies and the glutes. So that is it in a nutshell in 2026. Do 2 pro shows, see where we fare. And yeah, that is it, guys. Next question. How do you balance everything? Life, business, relationship, and parenting? And that's from Chloe. Yeah, it's, I think it was just me and my fiance, Sash. You know, she supports my goals. She's a driving force behind me. I can't be the bodybuilder I am without her. You know, she understands, you know, what it takes to be a bodybuilder. She is a phenomenal fiance. You know, I was dragging her up and down the country in 2025, heavily pregnant, to shows with clients, to my shows. And obviously, she hung on when I won my pro card, my PCA pro card in the British. And then 5 days later, she gave birth to a beautiful son, Riker. So, yeah, I think we just got a very good understanding. We don't go to bed at separate times. You know, I will stay up fucking scrolling the shit, reading studies, looking at the most diverse stuff, you know, till God knows what time in the early hours of the morning. But we got a sort of rule that we don't go to bed separately. So if she's in bed at 10 o'clock, I go to bed at 10 o'clock. I'm only going to benefit from it because my sleep is on point. So that is the rule of thumb we have. We get up together, we sleep together at the same times, and we just got a very good sort of understanding as a couple. And, you know, parenting a little baby in prep was very challenging last year. But yeah, if you want something, you know, bad enough, you'll do it, guys. So thank you for that question. Next question. Do you consider yourself one of the best to come out of Wales? If so, why? Yes. And that's not me being arrogant or blowing steam up my own ass. Look at the body of work I've done, you know, over 15, 20 years. Look what I've won. How can anyone deny that? Take Flex Lewis. you know, I love Flex. We're good friends. He always checks in on me. You know, shout out to James. But take him out of the equation. Who is still doing this in their 40s? Who is still beating, you know, the UK's best, you know, in open classes who are much younger? Look at the drugs that everyone's taking compared to what I'm doing. You know, to be doing this on TRT, to win an IFBB Pro card, to go, you know, win my first international, to win 2 Pro cards within 12 months, and a British Championships, and a, you know, a pro show. So again, yeah, I've won overalls in every single Fed. I've been a natural bodybuilder. So yeah, I would definitely, I don't do this for, you know, shits and giggles and likes and just, you know, for validation. I don't need anyone's validation. I want to, when I walk away from the sport, I want to go down as the best ever come out of Wales. And when you look at my body of work and the resume, how could anyone, you know, deny that? So I'd absolutely say yeah, and that's not me being arrogant. That is just facts, I think, you know, when you look at everything and you take everything into consideration. So, you know, one thing I hate in life, the biggest trait in somebody is ego. So if anyone knows me as, you know, I'm so laid back, I'm so, you know, chilled, that is me. There's no ego here. There's no, so no, I'm not even the most confident person, guys, even as a bodybuilder. So I just go into shows blindly. You know, I flap like everyone else. I worry like everyone else. I don't think I'm going to win a show. I'm looking at the other guys. I mean, the physique just does the talking. And yeah, we've got a pretty good track record. So thank you for that question. Biggest prospect. And that is from Dan. Biggest prospect, I'm guessing, what, Wales? If I had to say right now, I would say there's 2 guys that stand out for me. That would be Dan Ingham and Lloyd Rutter. I think when you look at their shape, their size, their balance, their structure, them 2 guys are my picks for this year. You know, I stood on stage with Dan last year. I beat Dan in the 2 bros. When I won the 2 bros, he came second to me. Phenomenal guy, brilliant to catch up. Really nice words of encouragement backstage. I'm sure as hell we get a training session at some point. I'll come up to plan it, but he is a phenomenal talent. And then Lloyd, again, another guy I don't know very well, okay? But, you know, he likes my stuff on social media. We've interacted quite a lot through social media. He's dropped into my DMs no endless times and given me words of encouragement, words of motivation. He's given me props. And I think for a guy, a bodybuilder, that really shows the type of person they are when they can, you know, give a compliment to a fellow bodybuilder, because as we know, the sport is very cliquey and very like kind of like, you know, men are like, you know, who's got the biggest fucking dick competition. I'm not going to like his picture because that shows a sign of weakness, you know? So treat people as they treat you. And I've got a lot of time and respect for Lloyd, and he's a phenomenal fucking bodybuilder. Phenomenal. So out of Wales, them are my 2 picks this year. I think Dan Ingham and Lloyd Rutter. Structure, size, shape, symmetry. Yeah, they are my 2 picks, if that were the question is aimed at. Next question from Adam. Tell us how you got started, what you did before bodybuilding, and what got you hooked. I've always been obsessed with muscles. As far back as I can remember, I had a commando poster above my bedroom, above my bed in my bedroom on the wall. You know, my number 1 idol is Bruce Lee, so always muscles there. When I was in school, I used to just do leg extensions on my dinner break, and then dabbled in a bit of powerlifting, but always obsessed with muscles in films and, you know, anything. Incredible Hulk, you know, toys, He-Man, all these. You can actually never could see him as an He-Man figure right at the top of in my collectibles. So yeah, and then what got me started, powerlifting wasn't for me. And I just thought, yeah, I'm going to enter a bodybuilding show in 2004. And shout out to Wally. He's the one, James Wallace. He's the one that got me into it to do my first show. And then ever since, here we are. So I hope that answers your question. How did you build such good quads? I'll tell you how I built my quads. Squatting fucking 300 kilos, 280 for a triple, 140 kilos for 30 odd reps, doing walking barbell lunges with 120 kilos, doing box squats with 250 kilos, doing box lunges with 140 kilos. You know, the videos are on Facebook, they're out there. absolutely insane. You know, you've got to put the groundwork in. There's guys who can leg press 400 kilos and can't squat fucking 3 plates. So again, it tells you how false that movement is. You know, do the hard stuff, guys. And that is how I built my legs. You know, squatting and just doing, you know, an insane amount of weight. What's the next question? Mental and physical struggles, barriers you've experienced and how you overcome them. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit I've, you know, gone through a lot of issues over the years. You know, you get relation breakup, you get things in life that will pull you here, then, everywhere. You know, family members dying, just life in general, guys. And I just think, you know, if anyone's struggling, my DMs are always open. Okay, we need to communicate, we need to talk. But I'm not ashamed to admit that I've gone through some dark spots, you know, in my life, and I've gone through a bout of depression and things like that. It's just human nature. I'm not afraid to admit that, and I think that must be wild because people look at me, put me on a pedestal, you know, but I don't show that on social media. You know, I kind of keep things behind closed doors. You know, what you see on social media is what I want you to see, okay? But how you overcome them, I just think, you know, I got 2 tattoos here. This too shall pass, and I think that means, like, when you're in the struggles and when you're going through something, it'll pass, okay? And this one is trust the timing of your life. I believe that, you know, wherever you are and whatever you're going through is meant for you and is meant to challenge you. So those are the 2 ethoses that are on me daily. And look what I had to come back from, you know? They give me hours to live. I honestly thought I was going to die in 2022. They didn't even know I was alive. They even told me that, and I'll touch on that in that endocarditis video. But yeah, and I probably suffer a little bit of PTSD from that event, even to this day. So yeah, that is, you just gotta remember that what's meant for you won't pass you. And I just think, you know, no matter what you're going through, everything works out eventually. So you just gotta build that bulletproof mindset and just plow on and get on with things, guys, okay? And just don't sit in self-wallow and self-pity. So that is it for the questions. I just want to say thank you if you've got this far in the video. You know, this channel is going to be very diverse, guys. It's going to be a lot of things coming. Please like, subscribe to the channel. It's going to help it grow. Share the channel. You know, any comments, questions, please, you know, ask me in the comments below and I'll answer them. But yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you, and we're going to do some really cool things with this channel this year. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you, guys.